President Trump scores a major win against Governor Gavin Newsom over control of the National Guard in Los Angeles. A federal appeals court issuing a unanimous ruling in the president's favor. Jeff Paul has this story for us. He's in Los Angeles with details. Hi, Jeff. Good morning.
Good morning, Dana. Well, it looks like the National Guard will stay put here in Los Angeles, at least as long as President Trump orders them here. All three judges ruling in favor of the president, concluding that Trump was lawfully within his authority to take control of the Guard. Now, the decision came from a three-judge panel on the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. It halts a lower court ruling that had previously stated that Trump's actions were illegal when he deployed the Guard over opposition from California Governor Gavin Newsom, citing damage to federal buildings and objects protesters had thrown at officers. The court believes the Trump administration showed enough proof it was justified to send in the Guard, at least in this scenario. National Guard members who have been deployed to L.A. say their mission has always been clear.
The National Guard isn't performing any law enforcement activities. We're just protecting those federal law enforcement agencies while they do their job in federal facilities.
The president calling it a big win, adding this is a great decision for our country, and we will continue to protect and defend law-abiding Americans. Congratulations to the 9th Circuit. America is proud of you tonight. But California Governor Gavin Newsom reacting by saying the president is not a king and is not above the law. He says they'll press forward with their challenge to President Trump's, quote, authoritarian use of the U.S. military against citizens. Dana.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and most importantly, please make sure that you are following me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. With the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today, we have to head on over to California. Why? Well, because number one, Gavin Newsom suffered a huge loss in Trump's victory, in which the appeals court decided that Trump does indeed have the right to take over California's National Guard in order to maintain control of the riots that were happening in Los Angeles. For those of you who don't know, which I'm sure many of you do know, Gavin Newsom tried to sue Donald Trump, saying that what he's doing is illegal concerning the National Guard, yada, yada, yada. Trump appealed it and Trump won. We got that, right? But that's not what I really want to talk about today. I just wanted to rub that in Democrats' face a little bit more. What I really want to discuss today is what's been revealed, that while the city was burning, Gavin Newsom looks like getting a little bit of drunk, right? A little sippy at a winery fundraising party that he was having for his sister. Yep, for his sister. And we're going to get into that. But what I first want to do before we get into that is that I want to take a moment to focus on Karen Bass. Why do I want to take a trip down memory lane? I want to take a trip down memory lane because I want to set the foundation that these DNC lunatics are extreme hypocrites who love talking about the oligarchy and billionaires are taking over and the super rich and yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, they are that class who are always high flying internationally, sipping on margaritas on islands, shout out to Big Tush in New York, doing all of this fancy stuff, multi-millionaire dining, while people like you and me suffer under natural disasters and man-made disasters as it pertains to rioting. Now, why Karen Bass? Remember this. Like Gavin Newsom, while his city was burning, he was getting drunk. In my opinion, I assume, but he was definitely having a little sippy on some wine, right? Just like Gavin, Karen Bass was doing the same thing, literally, while the city was burning again earlier this year. Remember, while the city was on fire, Karen Bass was in Ghana, right? Having a little sippy celebrating. I believe it was some woman over there that became president, if I'm not mistaken, right? But look at this here, the hypocrisy in it all. Karen Bass, prior to becoming mayor, stated that she would never take any international trips and she would never leave her city, and she would stand by her duty as being mayor of Los Angeles. And I want to get into what she stated here. Look at this. Before taking office, Karen Bass pledged she would not travel internationally while serving as mayor of Los Angeles. During her 2021 campaign, she told the New York Times that if elected, she would restrict her travel to domestic locations like Washington, D.C., Santa Monica, San Francisco, and New York. And I quote, would not travel internationally. However, once in office, she began her term in December of 2022. She did make several international trips. For example, to Mexico, to France in relation to the 2024 Olympics, and to Ghana for a diplomatic delegation. It was literally a party. She literally went to an inauguration party. Notably, her trip to Ghana coincided with the January 2025 wildfires in LA, which drew significant criticisms since it broke her earlier promise. Now, what I want to do is I want to get into what I feel is a now classic interview done with Karen Bass, in which she was confronted upon coming off of her plane from Ghana. She was confronted immediately while waiting to get off the plane, and she just sat there with the, kind of silly looking look on her face, not wanting to answer any questions. So this is going to jog some memories. Let's go down memory lane and get into this video right now.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today?
Can you back up, please? I appreciate it.
Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
I mean, this woman could care less. She's not interested in what you're talking about, and for sure could care less about the citizens of Los Angeles. I want to get into this next clip also of Karen Bass before we get into Gavin Newsom, because once again, I have to just continue to lay down the foundation that these people are liars. They're liars and extreme hypocrites. What am I going to get into next? In a local Fox LA news clip here, she was asked about her trip to Ghana, whether or not she regretted it, and why didn't she stick around, despite the fact that there were numerous warning signs that this was on the horizon, literally a day before she left for her trip, right? She's going to lie to us right now and tell us she didn't know about any warnings, right? She's going to lie. And I'm going to prove to you that she's lying. So let's get into this clip next, and then we're going to jump into Gavin Newsom.
To go to Ghana, which I know you've said was a mistake now. But I just am curious on the thought process behind it.
Right.
Because we know that there was warnings about the weather before you went, and you still went. What was the thought process behind going to Ghana?
So let me just tell you a couple of things. First of all, when the White House called and asked me if I would represent the president, I said yes. It was going to be a very, very short trip, over a weekend and 2 business days. We need to look at everything about the preparation and all of that for the fires, because I think when we evaluate that, we will find that although there were warnings that I frankly wasn't aware of, although there were warnings, I think our preparation wasn't what it typically is, meaning that before there's a major weather event, for example, last week when we knew we were going to get into the rains,
right,
you saw us come together and us talk about, get your sandbags, bring the K-rails out. That type of preparation didn't happen. If that had, I will tell you, Alex, I wouldn't have even gone to San Diego, let alone.
She's such a liar. I can't wait to prove to you that she's lying. I can't remember what she just said. When we normally have the typical preparations where we know ahead of time what's going to happen, and we told them before the rains came, get the sandbags. You literally warned everybody on your X post like the day before you took off, right? I'm sorry. I'm gonna let it play. Let me let it play.
Leave the country.
But what do you mean there were warnings you weren't aware of?
I'm gonna wind it back just a little bit since I interrupted.
If that had, I will tell you, Alex, I wouldn't have even gone to San Diego, let alone leave the country.
But what do you mean there were warnings you weren't aware of? Because I know we were talking about it on the news. A lot of people were talking about the problems, warning that this was going to be a huge deal.
So when I talked about it with the fire chief, what she said is that we have warnings of Santa Ana winds a lot, but predicting this, and you saw, from the city, from the county, that level of preparation really didn't happen. So it didn't reach that level to me to say something terrible could happen and maybe you shouldn't have gone on the trip.
Why didn't
But
it
to
happen?
me, I don't know. I mean, I think that that's one of the things we need to look at. So 2 investigations are taking place. One internal to the city, and that's the fire commission, because that's
Okay. Let's get into the fact that she's lying, right? She's just a bold-faced liar. Let me remove this and pull the other screen back up. She didn't know anything, right? She didn't understand what was going on. There was no preparation. We didn't know how bad things were going to get. If I knew things were going to get this bad or could be bad at all, I wouldn't have left anyways. I wouldn't have gone, not even to San Diego, I think she said. Bold-faced liar. Ladies and gentlemen, this is her X page right here. It's still up. Mayor Karen Bass. It's literally like I believe it was a day before the fire. A day before the fire. There is an expected, destructive, and potentially life-threatening windstorm starting Tuesday morning through Wednesday afternoon. Red flag. I repeat, red flag. No parking restrictions will go into effect in certain areas tomorrow morning. Stay safe, LA. Join Notify LA here, and then they leave the emergency link. That sounds pretty serious to me. It sounds like, there was potential for a lot of destruction to me. You literally said that this in and of itself right here was potentially life-threatening. And then you go on to say red flag. And then you quote or retweet or quote or repost, this NWS Los Angeles, weather warning right here. So you knew. How do you say you didn't know what was going on? You didn't receive any warnings and you had no idea what's happening when the local news reporter is telling you we were notifying people and we knew and understood this stuff was going to happen, days before it happened, right? And you have here on your own X post, you posted a warning, an emergency message to your people, but you left anyways. You left anyways. That is crazy how these people can lie like that. Unbelievable, man. That is I'm trying to stop saying that when speaking about these people. It's not unbelievable. It is very believable. Very, very much so believable, right? But these people are just bold-faced liars. Bold-faced liars. Now what I want to do next is let's get into Gavin Newsom, right? I want to do that right now. Because look at this here. Look at this. Ridiculous. Gavin Newsom sipped Cabernet while Los Angeles burned. Is it Cabernet? Am I saying that correctly? Cabernet. I think I'm saying that right. Cabernet. I don't drink, And when I did used to drink wine, it was red wine. I wasn't really into Cabernet and all the other stuff, whatever, right? But anyways, that's besides the point. Gavin Newsom sipped Cabernet while Los Angeles burned. Let's get into this article next. As riots engulfed Los Angeles and mobs vandalized public buildings, incinerated vehicles, and assaulted law enforcement officers, California Governor Gavin Newsom was enjoying a swanky wine tasting party in Napa Valley. The wine tasting was held on the afternoon of June 7th of 2025 at the Odette Estate Winery, which Newsom co-founded in 2011. Now get this, dubbed Vineyard Vibes. The event was a fundraiser for the PlumpJack Foundation, founded by who? Newsom's sister, and featured contemporary yet sophisticated wines, live jazz, and locally made pizza and smash burgers. Isn't that nice? Look at the one percenters. Look at the oligarchy in the Democrat Party. He's having fine wine, smash burgers, and locally made pizza at a fundraiser for his sister's nonprofit. Isn't that nice? I'm sure he raised a lot of money for his sister. I'm sure you raised millions of dollars for your sister, Mr. Newsom. Isn't that a beautiful thing? A source who photographed Newsom at the event expressed shock that the governor was in attendance, given the riots had broken out in Los Angeles the day before. I couldn't believe it, the source said. He was just walking around like this was an everyday occurrence. The timeline is also worth noting. Please pay attention. The Los Angeles riots broke out on June 6 in response to the Trump administration's illegal alien deportation policies. As Newsom sampled wines in Napa Valley the next day, rioters in Los Angeles had already begun vandalizing public buildings, barricading streets, setting vehicles on fire, and throwing rocks, bottles, and cinder blocks at law enforcement officers. That evening, after the wine party had finished, President Trump authorized the deployment of 2,000 National Guard troops in California, saying that they were needed to address the lawlessness. You can't make this stuff up, man. When Trump took hold of California National Guard, oh, do you remember the belly aching and the wailing and gnashing of teeth over him taking over the National Guard? Oh my God, he's gonna put forth martial law. Why are these guys, they're out here in the streets with guns? What's going on? Are you gonna kill people? Why is Trump doing this? This is military takeover and all this foolishness. While the city was burning, Newsom was getting drunk. In my opinion, I believe, I assume, allegedly. Wink, wink, right? That's what was going on. This guy was having a little sippy, raising God knows how much money for his sister at a wine party while the city is burning and you're not doing anything about it. And then when Trump is sitting back, maybe somewhere in the White House, watching this stuff on TV, trying to figure out why is Newsom not stopping this, not knowing at that time that he was having a little sippy at a wine party, too busy to be worried about the city, Trump took matters into his own hands and said, I'm going to take control of the National Guard and I'll handle this because apparently you're too busy drinking on some wine right now. But yet the way that the DNC lunatics framed it, they framed it as if Trump was engaging in some sort of a hostile takeover. You can't trust anything that come out of these DNC lunatics' mouths, man. All they do is lie, make stuff up. And it's insulting to all of our intelligence, especially when you find out what these guys are actually doing behind the scenes while all chaos is breaking loose. Look at this here. I'm not going to bother reading this post, but this was Gavin Newsom, after Trump took over the National Guard, right? Gavin Newsom had the nerve to sit up here after, still having wine on his breath, make a post on X saying, we are suing Donald Trump. This is a manufactured crisis. He is creating fear and terror to take over a state militia and violate the U.S. Constitution. I mean, what are you talking about right now? This is a violation of the Constitution. How? Never in the history of the country, the president has the legal authority and right to take over any state's National Guards. They just say, almost curse, they just say BS all the time. Everything is a constitutional crisis. And then you get big mad when Trump wins because you're lying. You're putting forth frivolous lawsuits knowing that you're lying. They get on TV and they tell you Trump is doing something that's illegal, knowing that he's not doing anything illegal. Liars. That's who these people are. And then when they take an L, they can't take it. In closing, I want you to see how MSDNC is spinning Trump winning the appeal to retain control of California National Guard. Because as we speak right now, Trump is still in control of the National Guard, as he should be. As he should be. But listen to the foolishness and the lies and the fear-mongering that come out of the mouths of those on MSDNC in defense of Gavin Newsom. Let's check this out next.
This decision, in essence, gives Trump the green light to use the National Guard in other states. And the administration has been hinting very publicly that they're going to go into New York City, Chicago, maybe some other states, all happen to be blue. What is the mood like, Elizabeth, that you sense from talking?
he's very, it's just a liar. We all know that Trump publicly stated on his Truth Social that as it pertains to mass deportation efforts through ICE, they were going to focus on the top 3 sanctuary cities, which is obviously Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York. This Democrat liar is merging Trump's victory in the appeals court with retaining control of the National Guard with that statement, as if Trump stated that he is now going to send the National Guard to Chicago and New York, or take control of the National Guard in Chicago and New York and place them all throughout the streets to oppress the people of Chicago and New York. Trump, he never uttered anything of that nature. Anything of that nature. And there's no reason for him to take control of the National Guard in Illinois and New York. Why? There's nothing happening over there right now. There's no reason to. These people, I just don't understand how people take them seriously. I'm literally speechless. And the reason I'm speechless is because, like I always say, I can't really articulate what I want to genuinely say. So I'm rendered speechless because how do you say anything in a respectful manner when you're dealing with people who don't deserve respect? Because all you do is lie, troll, and talk foolish. So since I'm at a loss of words, let's get back into the video.
Lawmakers, state officials.
Rewind it back just a little bit for you guys.
Talking to lawmakers, state officials about where this goes from here now that the president does have the legal green light to use the National Guard.
I can tell you that in New York City, if he deploys the National Guard in New York, it'll cause it's going to cause a giant outrage and create probably more violence than there would be anyway.
Isn't that what he wants?
Well, that's of course one of the working theories, that he wants to, create this all over the country and then, declare martial law.
This is conspiracy theory nonsense 101. This is conspiracy theory 101. The goal is to create. That sounds like those old school YouTube videos from back in the day. I mean, I love a good conspiracy theory video, so don't get me wrong. I love a good conspiracy theory. But like, that's what this sounds like. Well, we believe that that's the plan, is that the real plan is that Trump wants to create martial law all throughout the country. What are you talking about? And you saw how she was stuttering and fumbling all over her words because she knew she was lying about why he wants to take over the National Guard. And if he takes over the National Guard, it's going to create violence. But she was fumbling and bumbling so much. Let's listen to that again. Listen to how she was just fumbling over her words so much because she knew she was lying. And you got to be careful these days because Trump and the gang, they are suing these networks over defamation and just saying complete BS, right? So listen once again how she just started fumbling over that.
The president does have the legal green light to use the National Guard.
I can tell you that in New York City, if he deploys the National Guard in New York, it'll cause it's going to cause a giant outrage and create probably more violence than there would be anyway.
Isn't that what?
She knows that she's lying. What is she even? That's MK Ultra glitch. That's that MK Ultra glitch that you're looking at right now. Shout out to all my conspiracy theorists, man. I'm with you guys too. That what we were looking at right there was an MK Ultra glitch. That's what was happening, right? From a liar who knows that she better be careful what she says because you could get your network sued. How does deploying the National Guard create violence if the National Guard is deployed to prevent violence because violence is occurring? You see what I'm saying? All you will do is lie. That's all they do. They lie, sip wine, and take trips to Ghana while their cities are up in flames. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news, ladies and gentlemen. So please, hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video on your social media platforms. And please do not forget to follow me on Telegram. That is so important that you do that. Follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegram is in the description box below and pinned in the comment section as well. Thank you all for your time. Until the next video, peace and have a great afternoon.